Hi class, my name is Anselm Destner. I was born in Germany. This is my website, destner.com. You can see some of my work there if you're interested. I started having a company called here Boys and Girls after I studied graphic design. And after I studied graphic design, I started a company called Boys and Girls. We named it Boys and Girls because usually we worked from home. It was sort of our studio. And when people came in and said hello, they're like, hey, what's up, boys and girls? They walked in, they gave us their project, we discussed it. It was mostly flyers for the clubs because we used to go out a lot. And this is kind of our way to get in on the guest list and knew all these promoters. And we designed about 2 or 3 flyers simultaneously every day for all of the clubs. And how we promoted ourselves was that on the back of the flyers we put our logo, which was that little, those kind of techie-looking heads that were sort of that bubble style of Designers Republic was really cool at the time. And that's one of the reasons why I really got into the graphic design was looking at Neville Brody's book in Germany. And he had these shapes. He was the art director of a magazine called The Face. And he did these really crazy layouts with big type and bold shapes, which was also different from what I've used to in magazines when I grew up. When I saw that, I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. I worked at a nightclub in Germany at the time, like collecting money to go study abroad. And they asked me to do posters to promote the parties of the club. And there wasn't any way for me to print it out, so I made stencils and spray painted the letters over. But you can see that the Brody typefaces are very simple to cut out, so they were sort of ideal to use, plus they were very condensed, so I could make these posters thin and put just 2 posters on top of each other, make like 5 to 10 different ones with the stencil, and then we would hang them up every week. So those were my first graphic design jobs. And then here in New York, of course, we printed them with 4-color prints, and I asked my friends to do illustrations for them. This one is by Bodhi. And we got more and more into working with these people, and through connections I started working at a web company, and they were called IO360, one of the very first web companies at the time. I didn't know what a website was. I didn't know the difference between website or email. Nobody had an email. I didn't know what I needed that for. And we designed web pages for the first companies like Sony or Sotheby's. And because of one of the flyers had my number on the back, Manabo from MTV called me and asked me if I wanted to design with him the first MTV website, because he kind of liked this style of a very like Gundam-looking techie style that he was into, and he saw that, and that's how we started working together. And then I also at the same time met a client that was doing a new format at the time, was called DVD. Yeah, you're laughing now because it's not around as much anymore. But back then, this was a new format that was very hyped, and I built all the graphics for the menus and animated the front motion loops for many years. That was one of the main jobs, and I always had like sort of separate pieces, separate industries, like, and I always had like different. And as a freelancer, it's kind of good to have several streams of income. So if one really dies down, that you're not like completely left alone. Now that DVDs aren't around anymore, I'm not making that many anymore. So let me just rewind one more here. At the same time, a friend of the web company walked in, and he had a new format called DVDs, and he asked me to design the graphics for them and make the motion loops and design all the buttons and menus. And for many years there was a very big industry. I also started working for Sony doing the same thing. So after a while, of course, it died down and became more, also moved mostly to LA at that point. And But I'm still working on DVDs and Blu-rays, and it's kind of good to have several streams of income so you're not completely depending on one industry. So now that DVD is kind of dying down, I started to do more web pages again, so it kind of balanced itself out. But back then we were doing Blu-ray menus here, and these were even like these in the old days. Some of them were still 4:3, and then of course it became 16:9 became the norm. But you could see how many different companies I worked for over the years, and then more and more it became websites for MTV, for the country music channel there. That's all Viacom. That's all kind of related. And Madonna's, or we had music promotion sites, some real estate coming up there as e-commerce sites and Chinese energy sites. So over the years I built up a large roster of clients on my resume, and there's an infographic of all the different jobs that I worked for, and places where I went to and worked from, because digitally you can kind of work from anywhere, really. So before that, though, we had the idea to put all the flyers into a magazine. We saw it from Germany. It's called Flyer, that magazine. And we started it here in New York. Then we expanded it to LA and San Francisco and in Tokyo as well. It ran about 4 or 5 years until it became really hard to get advertisers, because they mostly switched over to the internet, taking away from print. But we always bootlegged some product. It started with Tropicana because we wanted to be new and fresh, and it was a very iconic brand. The second cover there is actually the first issue that came out, was a telephone book, because it was a listing of all the club events in New York. So it felt like a telephone book with all the really tiny type. The telephone book was still around at that time, actually. And then, yeah, throughout the years, there was also the Chanel. They sued us for it, so we had to pull it off the market. But it became sort of this collector's item that if you caught one. Or the Miami Music Conference was the Pan Am. So we got quite a few calls from the lawyers from those products. But others also, like Rockstar Games, bought the cover from us because they thought it was cool to be on the cover. So it would go both ways. And then we had... I built websites back then in Flash too, and after the magazine, I went to Tokyo, visited my dad who worked there every year for a couple of months, and I was fascinated by this city, and I thought, this is the next greatest city I want to move to. And I met my wife here, who was from Tokyo, and we decided to go and live in Tokyo on and off for a couple of months every year, and then we stayed like another year there. For the reason also, after a couple of years, we had a daughter. We wanted her to speak Japanese, and it was interesting for me to meet new people, new graphic designers over there, and I went to many meetups. So with digital, you can really work from anywhere, and it was a great experience to be in another culture, to be exposed to that. So these websites were mostly for fashion, Tunji Dada's website back then, or for a Bitcoin company below that in Japan. And then when I came back, I needed a sort of more full-time job, and it became a freelance full-time at Scholastic, they were rebuilding their website, and they needed someone to put it all together and help them in a team to build. And that extended to several other projects at Scholastic as well. And now I'm building mostly websites for clients that also need me to code them, because there's not a huge budget. And I kind of like that bit of puzzle job to build. WordPress is what I'm using mostly now, and so I build custom themes for them. And they have custom functionalities. They don't look like Squarespace, and they don't look like the template, but they come from me to have this kind of special look. Also, real estate companies was a big deal. In the middle, there's a journalist. She needs many updates. So having websites and run them for the people also means kind of a recurring income of, they always, like it's a relationship. They come back to me because it's a project that keeps building and building. A website is not static like a print piece. You can always change it and improve it. So now there's, I also came back to what I really liked was typography and designing typefaces. And this is actually one that I designed in college called Milk in Space. And I started making prints with them on using, let me go, I might have them behind me here. Using silk screens, and I would print them sort of like record cover. I thought I would maybe make some sort of a EP collection of these prints, of these typefaces. And to show them, here there's one called The Kitchen, or I did one that I went back to an old teacher of mine from college. She had a course, like a studio course, doing a portfolio update, and she had an assignment doing a bucket list. I think we'll do that too. I think it's really good to have it. I didn't really know what a bucket list was, but it means sort of like what you want to do in life. But I felt it was kind of strange that I wanted to share this with everybody. I'm not so sure of many things that I still want to do in my life. It's kind of a comes and goes, and my list would change, but the only thing I really wanted to do was new work, which is on the top, and then the rest I kind of abstracted, as you could see down there. These were also record covers that I silk screened. This is all made of little icons of emoticons that my daughters at the time my daughter spoke like that, sort of like the Minecraft zombie bunnies. But I showed these posters in a group called Type Thursday. We met every Thursday in different places, then lately at the Type Directors Club, but now everything is cancelled, of course. And it was really good for me to be part of this group, to talk to other people and have a network and have friends that have similar interests that I could ask for advice on how they build it, and then also give back advice to them. So it became really nice to discuss. Everybody could sign up for it, and the first 3 that signed up, we would discuss 3 or 4. And it's expanded to Barcelona, Bucharest, even now it's in South America, Bogota, and a bunch of other cities. And now with Zoom, it's become very international to talk to everybody, which is also very nice. But I also thought I wanted to get into something new, and I asked at Pratt if I could teach there, and they let me do it because they saw my portfolio, they saw my resume, and they figured like I have a lot of exposure to many different companies. It would be good for the students to show them what's possible to do. I have different angles that I can go with. And I liked teaching a lot. It was not just the preparation of the material that I liked, but it was also really cool hanging out with students that are so full of great ideas, and the way we discuss it, and all this atmosphere on the campus that we can bounce off these ideas and discuss them, and have the resources and have the right people to ask for it, that know really good answers and methods to make it like perfect at the end. And in the summer I taught a program at the New School, which is even bigger than Pratt, and it was a bigger campus, and they had so many courses that I could also take and learn. So it was kind of a really great team to work with, and I had a summer intensive portfolio class just like the one we're having here, and in person back then. But it was really great energy, I have to say, and at the end we were really overwhelmed how much work we got done in this time. But it's still kind of up to you. You need to make it work. There's this quote by Frank Zappa, and he said, like, don't tell, like, the teacher can not tell you what to do. Basically, you have to come up with it. But I can kind of help you find, there are methods, and there are sort of step-by-step things you can do to get there. So people have developed tools. So I'm more like your tool. I can be a good or a bad tool, but just you could use that to get your personal style, your personal kind of block. And I invited a couple of people that wrote books about that. He wrote a book about that too, that will explain what that means to stand out in this world that has become so loud. It's really hard to have your voice heard, and you're so full of ideas. Like, how are you going to condense it to something that will grab someone's attention? But that's why we're here for. We want to condense this down to like that special broth that's you, that's like your essence. So actually I'm really happy to get up every morning and say, wow, I have a great project, and I'm so lucky that I feel I'm doing what I really wanted to do. And let me show you around a little bit. For the place that I'm working from is here is this office that I'm standing in. Hold on. Here, I'm coming again. It's It's really beautiful to come in every morning. And nobody's here right now, but I print from this corner. Oh, yeah. So now record the videos that way. So, yeah, you can probably understand why I love coming here. All right, thank you. And I'm so super happy that we're going to do this together. All right, take care.